Step into the crime scene. The night is heavy. Police lights flicker against the wet asphalt, painting the street in blue and red shadows. A body lies silent. The crowd whispers, reporters circle like vultures, and the detectives, they look for answers. But here's the truth. The answers are never written in blood or chalk outlines. They live deeper, beneath the surface, in the choices the killer made. Why here? Why now? Why this method, this victim, this stage? Every crime is a message, every action a clue. And to read it, you don't start with guesswork. You start with the foundation, the first principles of human behavior. Tonight, we go beyond the myths. No devils, no monsters, just humans, broken in predictable ways. And once you understand their principles, you understand their shadows.
When you step into the mind of a criminal, the first thing you learn is that nothing is simple. What seems obvious rarely is, and what looks like madness often hides a pattern. The press paints killers as monsters. Society whispers about evil. But the truth, the real truth, lurks somewhere in between. It's not the devil that drives them. It's human flaws, twisted logic, desperate needs, and shadows from their past that shape every decision. First principles are the bones beneath the skin of criminal behavior. Strip away the headlines, the speculation, the myths spun by tabloids, and you start to see structure, order, a way of thinking that might explain the inexplicable. If Chapter 1 cast a wider net, reaching into the water where predators swim, this chapter sharpens the lens. It digs into the foundation, the rules beneath the chaos. A crime scene is never just blood on the floor or a body left behind. It's a stage, and every move the criminal made was part of a performance. Some performances are sloppy, riddled with mistakes. Others are chillingly meticulous, as though the killer rehearsed the act 100 times in their head before the curtain lifted. But either way, each choice speaks. To understand why, you need to get down to the basics, the first principles that guide human behavior even in its darkest form. Criminal psychology tells us something simple, yet powerful. Behavior has meaning. That's the cornerstone. A man who breaks into a house at night might do it for money. Another man does it not for money, but for the thrill of crossing into someone else's private world. Two acts that look identical, a shattered window, a ransacked bedroom, can spring from two entirely different drives. The principle is this: every action is a clue. Every choice is a signature. It's tempting to believe criminals act without reason, that they are impulsive creatures blinded by rage or lust. And yes, sometimes that's true. But even then, patterns emerge. Rage isn't random. It has a trigger. Lust isn't chaos. It has an object. To read crime properly, you must treat each act as part of a language, a dialect spoken in broken glass and bruised flesh. To hear that dialect, you must strip away assumptions. That's where first principles come in. Imagine you're standing at a crime scene. The police are buzzing around, cameras flashing, tape stretched across doorways. Everyone's rushing to collect evidence. But your job is different. You're not just here to bag a hair fiber or photograph a footprint. You're here to ask the one question that matters. Why? Why here? Why this victim? Why this method? Why now? First principles demand you don't take the easy answer. They force you to dig deeper, to test the bedrock beneath the surface. Take, for example, the question of location. A killing in a stranger's home is different from a killing in the victim's home. A body left in an alley tells a different story from a body displayed in a park. One suggests panic, the other performance. First principles tell us that criminals don't float through the world at random. They operate within their routines, their comfort zones, their shadows. A burglar doesn't usually pick a house across town. He picks one down the street, one that lets him retreat fast, one he knows by heart. That principle, the geography of crime, becomes a compass. Then there's the principle of repetition. Criminals, like all people, are creatures of habit. A man who strangles his first victim is more likely to strangle the second. Not always, but often enough that it matters. Why? Because the method isn't just a tool, it's an expression of need. A gun might be practical, but strangling requires intimacy. It requires time, touch, presence. It says something about control, about the killer's relationship to power. The principle is that every method is a mirror. Look into it, and you might see the killer's reflection staring back. And what about trophies? Many killers take something from the scene, a necklace, a photograph, a lock of hair. Police see theft. First principles see ritual. The object isn't valuable in money, it's valuable in memory. It becomes an anchor, a way for the killer to relive the crime long after the act is done. That single stolen item can reveal obsession, fantasy, and a hunger that never dies. That's not randomness. That's principle.
First principles also teach us about escalation. Rarely does someone wake up one morning and decide to kill. They climb a staircase of crime. They test limits. Maybe it begins with theft, then violence, then something darker. It builds because the satisfaction fades and the hunger grows. Just like an addict chasing a stronger dose, criminals chase stronger thrills. To see a killer's first principles is to see his ladder, the steps he climbed before the world noticed his shadow. But here's the catch. Principles are not laws. They are not ironclad. People are messy. Desperation bends rules. Panic breaks patterns. Yet even then, something consistent lingers. A man under stress reverts to habit. A woman in panic falls back on familiar ways of coping. That's why first principles are so vital. They cut through the noise and point to the beating heart of behavior. Think of Ted Bundy. His charm was his weapon. He didn't need to break down doors. He lured women to him with a smile, a fake cast, a request for help. That was his principle: manipulation, control, dominance disguised as vulnerability. Then think of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. He didn't charm, he terrified. His principle was fear. He wanted victims to feel his darkness before he ever touched them. Two killers, two principles, two patterns of behavior, but both revealed the same truth. Criminals can't escape themselves. Their principles betray them. This is why profiling exists, not as mysticism, but as logic. To understand crime, you need more than DNA and fingerprints. You need to know how people tick, what principles they follow when the mask drops. It's the difference between catching a criminal and understanding him. And understanding is the only way to anticipate his next move. Now picture the profiler at work. He isn't some fortune teller staring into a crystal ball. He's more like a mechanic stripping down an engine to see how it runs. He looks at the broken pieces of a crime scene and asks, "What does this tell me about the machine behind it?" The answer lies not in guesswork, but in principles. Patterns of human thought and action that never truly change. That's the real edge. First principles arm you against illusion. The tabloids want monsters. The movies want maniacs. But the truth is colder, subtler. The criminal is human. And because he's human, he's predictable. At least to those willing to listen to the language of his actions.
Every profiler knows this. The moment you strip away drama, you find clarity. The killer isn't a shadow with glowing eyes. He's a man driven by needs, fears, obsessions. He eats, he sleeps, he plans, he panics. He makes choices, and those choices follow principles. Once you see those principles, you can follow the trail. And once you follow the trail, you're no longer chasing shadows. You're walking alongside them, step for step, until they lead you to the source. That's why this chapter matters. It's the foundation of everything that follows. Without principles, profiling is guesswork. With them, it becomes science. A dark science, perhaps, but a science nonetheless. You can learn to read the signs, to see beyond the surface, to understand the architecture of crime. And once you do, the shadows begin to part. So, the next time you read about a crime in the papers, don't settle for the headline. Ask yourself, what's beneath this act? What drove it? What does it say about the person who committed it? That's first principles at work. That's where criminal shadows stop being mysteries and start becoming maps. Because in the end, the truth is simple. Criminals don't hide in chaos. They hide in patterns. And patterns, once you know the principles, are there to be read. And so, as we move deeper into these shadows, remember this. Crime is not magic. It's not madness. It's method. Every killer has a code, whether they know it or not. Our job, the profiler's job, is to crack it. If you've been drawn into this descent, keep walking with us. The next chapter digs deeper into intuition, the gut feeling sharpened into a blade. But for now, take these principles and hold them close, because the darkness is thick. And without first principles, you won't see your way through. Stay sharp, stay awake, and never forget, every shadow has a source, and every crime leaves a trace. So now you've seen how intuition isn't just luck. It's a craft, sharpened, challenged, and sometimes doubted, but never ignored. In the dark alleys of human behavior, it's the quiet pulse guiding every true investigator. But the shadows never sleep. In our next chapter, we'll explore the way criminals leave invisible fingerprints across places they move, their mental maps, their hunting grounds, their comfort zones. We'll learn how geography becomes a weapon and how investigators use it to corner predators who think they're invisible. Until then, keep your mind sharp and your instincts sharper. If this journey through the shadows pulled you in, don't just walk away. Hit subscribe, share it with someone who loves a good mystery, and let's keep following the trail together. The shadows are waiting, and so are we.